you're going with this. I don't think this is necessarily going to work today. Not for me. Thank you.
Challenging question. Councillor Bartley, please.
I'm just processing what everyone's talking about, but I'm looking at in terms of blame. You know, the current situation we have, something will happen, cycle lanes go in, Apirana Ave, local board says it's not them, community blames me, and it turns out it was Auckland Transport, or local board blames Auckland Transport, or whatever. Everybody is blaming everybody. So how is it going to be different with our new system? And if we are doing more delegations, then we're going to need to be more closely communicating with each other so that, you know, I don't know, I just don't want to be in a situation where I'm taking the blame for something I didn't have a hand in. So I just want to know, how's that going to be different?
Thank you. I think perhaps the piece that's missing from the report is the process preceding the decisions that we've represented in Attachment B. So there are work programs that are sort of developed in consultation at staff, local boards, governing body, TID committee. So work programs are developed, projects within those are scoped, they're designed, they're costed, the community impacts are considered, and those are brought back to elected members to make decisions on the projects that make up those programs. What we're talking about with the decisions that are sitting in Attachment B are at the end of the process. So this is where we're proposing that staff be delegated a lot of responsibility to legalise the controls that are required to give effect to the project that has already been through sort of committee approvals. It's been through local boards. We've considered and provided advice based on community feedback. So what we're talking about is at the end of the process, and that's very similar to the way that the Traffic Control Committee at AT works currently. They're sort of at the end of the chain, they're receiving advice from staff across the organisation that considers input. So I think probably that's the missing link that hasn't come through, and that is what we're suggesting with Package B. Package C is going to be really challenging to implement, both from a resourcing perspective, a time perspective from elected members, but also for staff. Every decision would need to have a report and go through committee, and the risk is that fundamentally slows down transport decision making across the system. So we believe that Package B is the appropriate sort of response, with the protection that the work programs have been developed and the delegations are at the end of the chain.
Could I just add maybe Councillor Bartley as well, just to be really clear? So whatever road it will be allocated, either an arterial, a collector or a local road, and the decisions will be either therefore with governing body or with local boards. So if you're talking about blame or responsibility for decisions, it will be on Auckland Council now, and it will be one of those two bodies, depending on the road we're talking about.
You're already getting blamed for decisions you have nothing to do with, so there'll be less of that, not more. Next speaker is Councillor Sayers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just going to quickly add, along with speed bumps and speed limits, the other controversial one will probably be chip seal versus asphalt, right? And how to make up those cost differences as well. I guess my question might be around once a project's completed and something's spotted that was unintended, i.e. speed bump might be too steep and the truck's bottoming out, or it's causing vibrations that's affecting a home that wasn't anticipated, those type of things, the recourse of action there in terms of political, some local board member or a councillor being able to say, hey, look, this didn't work out quite how we expected. We need to review this situation and make some changes to the works. Could you just explain how that would...
Hopefully we're going to have standardised speed bumps so they all cost bugger all and aren't stupid.
Will that be good?
We're not going to give any board the power to have their own small mountain range across the street at several $100,000. we're going, that's one of the things that standardisations will either be there or not there.
Yep.
And, but I
That'll
think,
help, but it could be other things, right?
yeah,
So
you're
how we
quite
undo-
right.
how
I
we
mean,
undo something
you're right
that's
about
what
speed
we haven't
limits
got
are all
quite
over the
right.
place. There's
Yeah.
5 between here and Ponsonby. I don't think anyone knows them other than the little Chinaman in my car who looks out the front and tells me where they are.
So could I just get a response about how what that process might be?
Sorry, councillor, could you just repeat the question, sorry?
So so with all good intent, some works might be signed off, but once they're completed, there's something that wasn't anticipated in the design that's perhaps causing issues. How does an elected member go about having that corrected or adjusted?
So once a project is completed, we've got generally 1 year is our normal, we've got our project team that will put it in. 1 year we make modifications based on feedback from members of the public or elected members. That's a good opportunity for feedback if it's not quite working. After that, it goes to our operations team and they make changes. As an example, I'm in the operations space, so we're currently, reviewing all the speed tables on arterial roads and making them more appropriate for arterial roads. So there's always a mechanism for modification through back to staff.
And this one might be for you, Megan, just listening to what Councillor Williamson outlined for us in terms of the ministers having the ultimate sign-off and we could run into an unintended hurdle at this stage because of the maps we've come up with around what is an arterial road versus a local road. Could you just, I think he asked for us to just have another look at that and make sure we weren't in a vulnerable position. Could I just get clarification what actions we would undertake as a result of that input?
Thank you, through the chair. So we have been keeping the ministry officials across the work that we've been doing with you over the past months around the roading classification framework, and just obviously to be very, very clear, that's the ministerial approval as opposed to the kind of governance arrangements that's your decision. So just making clear we understand that. So look, we believe that we are what you signed off last week is helpful, and we've had some helpful feedback from the ministry as well. So I'm not anticipating significant issues. There may well be some questions, entirely fine, and we will feed that back. But we feel that we've done as much as we can to set you up for success, as well as the minister and the government as well. So look, that's the process that we've used. We have tried to keep them and certainly the ministerial officers informed through the process.
Okay, that's helpful to know. And probably just off that, Megan, and this is just a contingency which I need to ask as a governor, and that's in terms of if the minister unexpectedly asked us to do a review, how quickly could we get that review done back in front of us and back in front of the minister?
Through the chair, look, we'd have to do that very quickly. We've obviously still got our 1 October deadline, so I suspect that if there were some really big issues, we'd probably need to call an extraordinary meeting or something like that. We'll need to in order to keep the timeframes.
All right, thank
But
you.
I'll work with the chair and deputy chair around that of TID. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Henderson, please.
Thank you. I think I can assist with some of the questions raised. So I don't want to get this twisted, right? So cycleways. Do elected members have control over cycleways with package B, and in what way?
Cycleways, so if you're talking around cycle lanes on the road, yes, I do, because that's actually a special vehicle lane, which requires a resolution. So they do for cycleways on the road.
Yeah. And would it be fair to say more control than the previous Auckland transport arrangements?
Absolutely, because the decision would require a resolution to put in a special vehicle lane, a cycle lane on the road. So it would have to be made by a committee of elected members.
Excellent. Well, that one's sorted. Package C. I want to ask a few cues about that. So it was raised in a previous answer. There was a risk of slowing down transport decision making under Package C. Could I ask you to just go into more detail and tease that out a little bit more, please?
Thank you. The package B, we anticipate, based on the work that we've done modelling prior year's work, around 260 sort of reports or decisions that would need to come to the subcommittee, the RCA subcommittee. If we then look at package C in comparison, that could be up to 1,300 decisions that would need to come to that subcommittee on an annual basis. And a decision may include multiple sort of resolutions to give effect to the outcome that's being sought. So the volume is very, very significant. So where we see the risk with package C is the amount of time that staff would need to spend developing advice, writing reports, and then sitting with committees. Versus package B, where they would be empowered to actually take some of those decisions based on approved work programs directly. So that is the challenge that we see, is just the amount of staff time and elected member time sort of in meetings, but also preparing the advice for elected members to take those decisions directly.
Thanks, I really appreciate that. So when you said 1,300 decisions probably with multiple resolutions under Package C, is that an annual figure or is that over a term?
That's an annual figure.
1,300 a year, okay. And you talked about staff time. Yeah, I thought that was a good answer, but could I get you to, if you have any more information about that, I'd like to know in terms of, do we have to set aside budget for that? Would we have to hire staff for that? How would that work practically?
So package B, we believe, can be accommodated within existing resourcing. So considering the staff transferring across from Auckland Transport into Auckland Council. Package C, we do believe would require additional staff resource that is not budgeted for currently. So that cannot be accommodated, we believe, with the current resourcing available.
Thanks, I really appreciate that. Thanks, Chair.
I think hopefully it'll slow down stupid decisions and speed up good ones, but I don't know whether that's possible. Councillor Ferry.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. So I have 3 questions. The first is, obviously we signed off on the Auckland Road Classification Framework last week, and looking at the minutes, it does look like that was unanimous. There's nothing noted on the minutes, but anyway, it was voted through last week. When are we expecting the ministerial sign-off? Like, do we have a time frame from them? Because obviously that becomes pretty important.
Yeah. Through the chair, no, I don't have a time frame. We have passed that on to the minister and his officials. We have obviously asked for it to be as soon as possible so that we've got that 1 October deadline, but I don't have a time frame for you.
Okay, thank you. And we will, so the blue roads, the difference between the blue roads and the yellow/orange roads is who is the decision maker, correct? So the blue roads still have democratic oversight from decision makers. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
It's just that it's going to be us, not local boards. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. Thank you for confirming that. The next question I had was around the Chair's Rec Mayor around the city centre. So I just wanted to understand what the difference is here and what's proposed between the working group members and those who are invited to participate. Noting that this is going to give direction, it's not going to be a decision-making body. What's the intention there about having 2 classes of members, if you like? What's the plan there? Well, so you've got, if you just scroll up a little bit, or is that down? I can't remember, but if we can see all of the red, that would be great. Thanks. So you've got there establishing the political reference group. It's going to provide direction and improve the decision making. And then the membership is 4 people. and then invited to participate are a further 3 people. So what's the difference between the 4 people at the top and the 3 people at the bottom in terms of their involvement with that group?
Not great, really. I think they've been invited to participate means we've just chosen those. I think they'll all have the same say because it's not actually a decision maker anyhow. It's a recommender. So I think it's just a way of explaining how we got there.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. So there's not an intention that, for
Not
example...
intention to be an A and a B division, no.
Okay, great. So they're all effectively the
Yeah.
same in terms of their level of participation in the group.
Okay.
Yeah. Great. And then my final question was in regards to the packages around the staff delegations. The thing that sort of concerns me a little bit is the assessment of impact and the idea that where there is high disruption, and in particular where there's no effective mitigation, that's when it would come to elected members, be that local board or here. How is that going to be measured, and how can we ensure some consistency? Because the sense of high disruption for people who are staff who are working with these projects in the road corridor all the time could be quite different from the community experience of high disruption, and also our sensitivity to that as elected members. So how will we set up some criteria or some exemplars? What's the process going to be to make sure that we start to have, a consistent approach to high disruption and what may or may not be considered effective mitigation?
Thank you for the question. We currently have a disruption assessment tool. So when someone wants to do works on the road corridor, they put in their corridor access request, and there's a matrix they basically have to fill out. And it could be, the type of road, the time of day. There's a few different factors, and then it spits out potential high disruption. So we've got that trigger. At the moment, we rely on a number of experts through the Auckland Transport Organisation to pick out which ones are highly disruptive. They're pretty good. They're very good at actually establishing these ones. So we've got some pretty good visibility. We've got an escalation form at the moment called NAC, and it goes to that, and it's so we've kind of got an established mechanism for identifying these highly disruptive sites that can't be mitigated. What this doesn't do is, if we've got a contractor that just pops up randomly and does some work that we didn't know about, it's not going to capture that. This is the planned disruptions. Whenever one follows the rules, we'll be able to escalate that. But we can circulate the criteria that we currently use for visibility and refinement if need be.
I think that would be really useful for local boards as well, and to understand also what's considered effective mitigation. So one of the things I'm dealing with an issue, it's actually on an arterial, so it wouldn't have gone to the local board under the current, under the new system anyway, but where part of mitigation is putting the steel plates, or I don't know if they're steel, metal plates, over at night. And for some neighbours that might be effective mitigation, but for people who might be trying to go in and out during the day, that wouldn't be. So there's things like that I think it would be helpful for us to understand better what the triggers will be. And if you can maybe in that information give us some examples, like real examples of, this is a project where we assessed it was high disruption, this is a project where we assessed it was low, that kind of stuff. One of the things that's in the back of my mind about this is there is no legal framework for compensation for disruption. We went through that with the CRL stuff where, there was a hardship fund, but that was the first time, and so far the only time in the history of New Zealand that there has been, in that case, compensation for businesses impacted. So we haven't got that tool in the toolbox for mitigation. Although it is one that people often raise, particularly if they're running like a dairy or something. So more information on that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lee, please.
Yeah, I think the concern from at least some members around the room is that the optics that the council, AT, together, I guess, are frankly yes ministering Parliament's decision in terms of who has the power and who has the decision making, and I think we need to take the points raised by members very seriously. In terms of governing body member input, a number of controversial issues have been raised by members, including speed bumps, speed limits, cycleways. In my experience, cycleways are not necessarily controversial at all, or cycle paths, but the way are designed certainly is. And the one thing that hasn't been mentioned is decision-making over the removal of car parks and loading zones, which in effect amount to millions of dollars of value stripped out of local businesses. Now, last December, I was at a meeting at Grey Lynn when it came down to the planned removal of 2 car parks, angled car parks outside the shops. And the AT liaison people there, after a long discussion, agreed that they would ensure that they weren't removed. And then the message came back a few days later, the TCC, the Traffic Control Committee, has resolved not to go along with the agreement, and so those car parks will be taken away. And the TCC is obviously, as you know, made up of non-elected officials, officers, with very little transparency at all. And there's very little awareness about the power, the enormous power of the TCC amongst the general public and even elected members. So my question is, what is going to be done in terms of Parliament's intention to enable much more democratic accountability that key decision-making bodies, such as the TCC, are made accountable, are made democratic, and are actually made more visible so that people know who is behind these key decisions that can impact on people's lives and businesses. So my question relates to what are we doing about the TCC? Is it just going to move holus bolus from AT into the Auckland Council, or will the windows be open and it be made more transparent and accountable? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So under Auckland Council, the TCC will not be making decisions. What happens to it, there might be an advisory role for it, it's still to be determined. But if you look at the last 2 pages of this attachment B document, it covers parking controls, and these are bylaw decisions. So these are decisions that needs to be made by a committee under different changes in legislation. You have to be an elected member to be part of the committee to make these decisions. So staff, TCC, will not be able to make these decisions. So time restricted parking, no stopping at all times, clearways, bus stops, loading zones, angle parking, all these controls will need to go to the subcommittee for approval. This is where a lot of the projects capture controls like this. So let's say if you're putting in a pedestrian crossing, you're generally putting in broken yellow lines. So the pedestrian crossing by default would go to the subcommittee. But all these controversial things with parking removal, TCC will not be making the decision. They can't make the decision going forward under Auckland Council. That would be for elected members.
And elected members could be local board or could be governing body?
Yes, that's correct. For parking controls, local boards have the powers on local and collector roads.
Thank you.
Well, that's good news, isn't it? Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Chair. I do feel, through all the workshops and everything, a little bit like in the twilight zone right now, but I'll try. First to Megan, this basic direction and the changes in the legislation, this is all based on our submission too. Like as far as I can see from our submission on this bill and the delegations we asked for, it's in line these are delegations are in line with that, right?
Yes, that's right.
Can I make, and I just spoke to Meredith around delegations, and I think for the public's understanding, media, whoever, we're talking about local board or governing body makes a decision on a project. Say it's a town centre improvement that's 40 Ks that's asked for pedestrian improvements. We approve the design, or the local board approve the design depending on the road. The only decisions the staff might make is the final, legal, because I guess people complain to us. We've approved, I think, in the past, or a local board's approved a mid-block crossing, say, and those lights stay off for a long time sometimes until the TCC has made the final decision, which is essentially approving that it aligns with the NZTA requirements. And until that final decision is made, they don't turn the lights on. Are you saying that really the decision-making matrix is just delegating that bit or something like that to staff, because we don't want to be coming here every day for, is the sign in the correct position, etc., etc.? Is that correct?
That's correct.
So there wouldn't be a case where we would be shocked that staff had approved a 40K zone on an arterial road and none of us knew about it. It was just magically delegated to staff. It was 50 to today, and 2 months later it's 40, and suddenly we're all surprised. That just can't happen under this new matrix.
No, it can't happen because you'd have to already approve the overarching speed management plan.
And say a pedestrian crossing, the board or the council would approve the pedestrian crossing, or say we want we want this road to be safer for kids, and it might be the last point that the staff go, we're approving it this with this direction, these pram crossings in place, because they absolutely apply to the NZTA requirements. And that, instead of coming here for decisions on a Friday night and a Sunday morning, because that was what will end up happening, that last piece of the puzzle is what the staff may be delegated to do. Yes, it complies. Yes, it's what the project said. We'll sign that off instead of coming back to a governing body committee where you need 2 weeks lead-in time, agendas, all this kind of stuff.
Yes, that's correct. And as part of the report for the staff to sign it off, there'll be a section saying support from the local board or governing body to give them confidence to make that decision.
The staff will absolutely know that they have the democratic control for the first time ever to sign off some of these last requirements. And they're not going to be out there going, shit, I hope I can really piss off the governing body today. That's just not going to happen.
No, that will not happen.
Thank you. And then, well, because we're not in the past. I know a lot of people want to stick there, but we're not in the past. The other thing is that, what do we understand yet? Because in the workshops, we still don't really understand how many, under the B, what that looks like. How many additional days, I'm up for it, I'm sure many others are, but how many additional days of decision-making do we already believe that for governing body and for local boards this under B might take? Because it's all well and good to go, I'd love 1,300, but what do we believe? I still don't believe we've locked in what additional time and decision-making that might be under B.
Thank you. So at the moment, based on the modelling we've done for the RCA subcommittee, we believe that will take an additional meeting per month to get the volume of decisions through. For local boards, we've looked at much the same, and the thinking and the recommendation that we're taking to local boards is that at this stage we don't recommend that we need any additional meeting or workshop time. Rather, what we're going to do is plan out every month that we have spots on both workshop and business meetings. So we've got the time on the agendas pre-planned for the rest of the term, but it's something that we will watch and see. We do anticipate that from time to time there will be a requirement for decision making under urgency, and so we will be working with the respective chairs of the boards just to work through what that process looks like on that monthly, because we've only got that monthly cadence.
And I'm assuming you would bring, because quite often right now, under the last at least year or even longer, things have been coming to councillors and local boards for feedback. Quite often I'll ask AT and no feedback's come forward, you know, on several things. Will you be expecting to do on paper feedback, or will it always be at a meeting, say if it's on yellow lines or a project?
There are a couple of mechanisms that we're looking at with local boards. One is around the option for them to establish a portfolio lead or a nominated person that staff are able to engage with sort of out of the normal cycle. And that gives the board an opportunity to call in decisions where the board think they might be contentious or where staff have any concerns. And so that's one opportunity that we're setting up for feedback with the boards. There are some decisions that we expect will go straight through to business meetings and don't require workshop. Workshopping's more likely to be around the sort of the design and scoping of a project versus some of the bylaw controls where we anticipate those sort of going straight through to business meetings without taking up that valuable workshop time.
Thank you. And on projects, when I understand where this decision making will be, but right now, say if a local board or the council or a councillor changes their mind about a project or they get a lot of feedback negatively, we kind of just lobby Auckland Transport and hope they'll agree and fund it. But my understanding now is if a local board or the governing body wanted to remove a raised table or remove a intersection or remove a transit lane, we would have to find the budget. The local board would have to find the budget. Like it's essentially a new project to remove. They would be moving other projects out of the way. Because at the moment we kind of don't see transparently that money. It might be 200 grand or something to change something, but we just hope AT will reprioritise it. My understanding is now a local board or the council would have to we would have to find the budget.
That is another one of the big changes that will start coming through on advice from staff is around the funding arrangements for projects. So at the moment, if we look at a TCC, Traffic Control Committee report, there's sort of no reference to finances and funding, so that will change and need to change in the new model, and elected members will receive advice around funding.
And the very last question, and it does go back to last week's decision, so I'll try not to lean into it hard enough, but the decision under the legislation is very clear. It's about traffic volumes or freight volumes and or public transport numbers. And that's why we made the decision over the matrix. But is it also my case, and maybe Steve knows or can remember, NZTA are very clear that they have other directions, but there's a regional road, but also arterials are anything over 3,000 or 5,000 vehicles. And the NZTA definition, they have a broader suite of definitions. They sort of say regional roads like a lake road, but is it correct?
Through the chair, I'm not sure that Steve and I have got that to hand right now. We can find that out, but I'm sorry, I don't know the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Gillen, please.
Thank you. I've just got a few more questions coming from what others have said. Where's the delegation for whether a road will be done in chip seal or asphalt? Which one does that come under? And I know there's the policy in place, I know it's funding related and all that, but in these delegations, where's that one sitting, please?
I'm trying to find there is a renewals part, and from memory, I'm trying to recall what it looked like for the governing body. For the local boards, it was the renewals program. We wanted to get signed off by the local board, but the ability to carry out repairs, such as fixing a pothole, we wanted staff to be able to make that decision, but we wanted the elected members to sign off the overarching renewals program. But I'll just need to find, it should be, I think it's in the infrastructure section. Oh, here we go. Carriageway on legal road, power to construct, upgrade and repair. So number 4 under infrastructure related decisions. So
Under package B, that's sitting with...
yeah, so that's sitting with staff for package B, and I believe for local boards we've got an overview of the whole renewals program.
Thank you. Now, Councillor Henderson asked a question before about the who has the decision making over the cycle tracks, cycle lanes, and your answer, from my understanding, was to do with if they are in this a special vehicle lane. However, there is also a delegation here for when they are not in a special vehicle lane. Can you just talk to that one, please?
Certainly. So I'll just touch on the special vehicle lane. So the special vehicle lane is under the traffic controls on the very last page of attachment B. So these special vehicle lanes are bus lanes, transit lanes, cycle lanes on the roadway. They require, under the bylaw, a resolution. A cycle track or a shared path, so that's kind of on the footpath, going along off the carriageway, that doesn't technically sit under the bylaw. It doesn't need a resolution. Staff could technically, an individual staff that hold that delegation, if they were given that delegation, could make that decision under package B.
And so, sorry, which of those definitions covers the portion of the road that's has like the concrete Tim Tams and things alongside it?
Yeah, so that would be under a special vehicle lane. Under the bylaw, yes.
Okay, thank you. I had another question, but I've lost it. I might have to come back to it. Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks for that. You can retire and we'll have a discussion. I think Deputy Mayor wants to say something or other.
No, thanks. I just feel that there is one key point that is making people nervous here, and that is who has the oversight on the decision making. It is elected members. When it comes to staff, it is for the final legal requirements. So to that end, there is an additional recommendation, thanks Chair and Chair of the Transport Committee. You need to know what that process is. You need to know when you have a say and what the final sign-off when it's by staff to meet the law, all right? Now, unfortunately, they've come to us with a paper that doesn't have that process in it. And I think the confidence, my concern when reading this paper was the same as many people's, and I see especially Councillor Henderson and Councillor Ferry have tried to clarify that in their questions, and Councillor Gillen. So the reason for that extra recommendation is to show that to bring that process to the Transport Committee, to Andy's committee, so you can see it, because it says the key words here, to develop a process to provide appropriate elected member oversight, whether it's us around this table or under somebody, whatever the committee is, governing body or local boards. And all our questions and concerns are because we haven't had that clarification, right? So it is elected members and there is a process and we need to sign that process off. And I think that's what that extra recommendation is. And just because it's my speaking turn, I will say, because that is a key recommendation, I will approve what's going through today. But the big key point for me was, when Aucklanders backed Mayor Brown to change transport legislation, they did that because they wanted the decision-making to be elected member-driven, not staff-driven, elected member-driven. And there needs to be a process that we are all happy about to prove that is the case. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that addition. We're under all of those recommendations. Needs to be, the whole thing needs to be moved and seconded. I'll move it and Councillor Baker will second this. And so further debate. But I think it's, most of those questions elicited, they're very focused questions, I have to say, and elicited a lot of the responses from what we've got here. So I think it's, and we're not at the end of the decision making, but this is another step along the route to where we're going to. And if we did it around too much, we'll never get to October. It'll arrive before we've got there. So I think I'm going to bravely put the motion. Oh no, sorry, I didn't have you there, Councillor Gillen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add one point, and that is that, look, I will be voting for all of this except for K, and I appreciate M being added, but we need to be very clear today with the parts today that we are adopting, and I know some of it's going back through local boards and coming back to us, but that's not the whole thing. Some of it we're locking in today, and so I'm not happy with where we've landed with package B. And I'll just give you an example, and this is one that I brought up at the drop-in session with staff last week, and that is that if someone wants some yellow lines outside their house, and this is something that came up near my house a couple of years ago, and it took 6 years for the community to get yellow lines put in place. It took a petition, it took advocacy from the local board, took budget from the local board, and it still took 6 years for that to go through. And that is one of the reasons why people have become so frustrated and why this has come to a change in legislation and why we're sitting here talking about this today. Now, if that was happening under this new regime, on a local road, fantastic, it'll go to the local board. Each month they'll get a list of all the requested yellow lines, they'll be able to do site visits, they'll be able to have the members of the public come and speak to them at their local board meetings and advocate for or against. And the local boards will make the decision and council will go out and paint the yellow lines or remove the yellow lines or whatever is required. But we've got a two-tier system. If it's an arterial road, then the member of the public will ask for the yellow lines. It'll go through to staff. Staff will make that decision. There'll be no recourse for the public to be able to. There'll be no ability for the public to be able to speak to us. We won't even know about the decision. It'll be considered so minor. We won't be able to have the chance to recall it to the committee to make that decision. So we will get the blame for that happening, or the credit for it happening. Now, the real crux of this is the decision that we made last week, and I just wanted to counter what Councillor Ferry said before, that no one voted against it. Actually, it's listed there who voted against that motion last week with the classifications. And I raised this last week, and it's a real shame that I wasn't listened to by everyone, because what we are creating, if the Minister approves it, and I acknowledge from Councillor Williamson the Minister may turn this down, and hopefully that's the case, but what we are creating is a system where 26% of the roads are going to be largely governed by staff. And I know we've just discussed here about, whether certain things will be coming to the committee, but the bulk of decisions will be sitting through staff. It doesn't look like we're adopting package C, where all the decisions will be coming to the governing body, and we'd be able to assess in future whether that was reasonable or not and start giving away things to staff. I mean, that's really the starting point we should have. Instead, we're locking in today what will be governed by staff and what will be governed by the committee. And because we have botched the classifications and we're including roads with far, far more than 5,000 vehicles a day as an arterial road, then that is what's going to be governed by staff. And as we've heard today, the staff can sign off a whole lot of stuff that is going to come back to bite us. And so I cannot support where we've landed with the list of delegations, Mr. Chair. So I'll be voting against K. The rest of it is fine, and hopefully if we can get the classifications sorted out, perhaps the delegations in front of us today will work out fine, but that's not guaranteed. So at this point, I cannot support K. Thank you.
Okay, I think we will have the opportunity to vary those things in the future as we learn more about it. And we had to start somewhere or other, because I don't really want to be approving the yellow lines outside your house, or even knowing where it is. But we will get the hang of it. It's a bit like with building consents, we don't actually look at every plan. We have to allow staff to do some things, and if it doesn't work out, we're here to change them. Councillor Newman.
Look, Your Worship, in supporting this, or the majority of it I do support, but I need to record in relation to L, I actually don't support the recommendation at L as it applies to B, infrastructure related decisions 1 through 10 at this stage, because I support the package C option as opposed to package B. So I'm prepared to vote for all of it, but I would like, and that my vote being recorded, if I can just have a note to say that as it applies to L, Councillor Newman doesn't support B, infrastructure-related decisions set out in attachment B. Sorry, it's very confusing, because I'm not yet persuaded that the process doesn't give me comfort at this point in relation to that particular part. By all means, there's a lot of other things here that I completely agree with where the office is recommending, but it would be remiss of me to just vote through on L and then somebody tell me in a week's time it was unanimously endorsed. So I just need my position on that one recorded. Thanks.
I accept that. I'm hoping that you'll know that I'm a great fan of standardisation. And standardisation really restricts the ability of staff to make dumb decisions. And we found that very helpful elsewhere, that if we really, really look at an intersection and get everything right on it, really get it right, and so this is how you do it, a whole lot of stuff disappears then, because they have to do it that way, and you have to come back to change from it. And you'll probably find that that will make the B a bit more easier than what we had in mind. But I think we're going to be on a learning curve here. I think anyone who thinks that on October 1 we've solved the problem completely is dreaming. But steps forward, it's a hell of a lot better than what we've been to put up with. And Councillor Henderson, you're next.
Yeah, thanks. I'm actually delighted about this and just wanted to bring a sort of sunny disposition to the debate here today, because I think let's zoom out and, remember that we're taking a great step forward for democracy with all this process. And this was why I did the questioning that I did, and making it clear that on the record, we have a hell of a lot more political accountability over all aspects of the transport process than we did before under AT. And that's the whole point of the reforms. So I'm glad to support all recommendations, and I agree with the Mayor's points and the Deputy Mayor's points around what they have said with it as well. There will be time to get the hang of it all, because this is a new process. It's not a new process for the country. Every other city gets a responsibility, but it's a new process for Auckland, and that will take time to sort of bed in and figure out a little bit. And so I'm well up for kind of reviewing and reforming it as we go down. But as a starting point, I think these recommendations really nail it. In particular around Package B, I want to just urge my colleagues to support K and L, please, but also review it in the future, because we were told under Package C that is 1,300 decisions a year. 1,300. Each of those decisions have resolutions. There can be multiple resolutions. And I've worked it out. If you had a fortnightly meeting for RCA, say, you would have 50 decisions per meeting with multiple resolutions. That would involve unbudgeted time, staff time, and spend on supporting that committee that you wouldn't need to pay under Package B. And each of those decisions involves work from us on that committee. Understanding of the details in each decision, understanding of the risks involved too. So, as a practical starting point, I think Package B pretty much nails it, but, open to reviewing that as the process continues. But I think we have sorted this out well, and I would just urge my colleagues to support this. Thank you, Mayor.
I think some of those decisions will be made at local board. So you'll find it's not nearly as bad as you think, because there's 21 of them. And so if you start dividing everything by that, it gets to be a bit more handleable. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mayor. And yeah, I have a positive outlook on this. It's a huge move. This is what people have asked for 15 years. And it is moving in a really good direction. There will be no Auckland Transport Board making these decisions. It will be us or local boards. And when we think of what has been delegated to local boards, 75% of the roads in our local board areas will be delegated to them for approval, for design, for decision making. The things that are not being delegated, which were a last week decision, but it's been brought up here again, were because we were very clear in our submission to the bill that we wanted to keep the network effect. what some of the positives about Auckland Transport that we have to carry over is the network effect. 55 frequent bus networks all around the city. We're not saying a local board is going to put up a barrier to stop those bus networks, but it's crucial that we keep them in place and keep the network effect there. It's very clear in the legislation that it's high volumes of traffic, high volumes of freight, high volumes of public transport. If you go to the road network classification information, and unless I don't have an updated one, for NZTA, it is very clear. There's national roads, there's regional roads, which are 10 to 15,000, then there's arterial roads, which are 3,000 to 5,000, or when you go to buses, regional is 40 buses or more, or arterial is 15 buses or more. I think we chose 48 in the end on the back of local board feedback, so we've lifted those up and dropped a few roads off. It is very clear why we need to have a regional approach to roads so that local boards, not that they will, but the average person doesn't see a boundary between boards. We need to make sure that we can look at a corridor, despite going across local boards, that is efficient for buses, for people, for cycles, for freight. The other thing is that if you look through our decision today, it's very clear, decisions that cannot be delegated to staff. These must be delegated to governing body. And you go around there, temporary road closures, prescribing conditions, time-restricted parking, no stopping at all time lines, so yellow lines, clearways, bus stops, loading zones, angle parking, time-restricted parking zones, special vehicle lanes, pedestrian malls, vehicles for unsuitable road because of goods, heavy traffic, cruising again, engine braking. There's so many things here. The list is very long that have to come to us or a local board very clearly. And actually, in my experience, and I obviously have a different experience from others, I've got yellow lines on behalf of residents this year, requested them and seen them put in within months. So, I mean, I just have a different experience because I've managed to get lots of things done on behalf of customers, residents, communities who've asked for things. So it isn't all bad, but I think it could be much, much better if we're far closer to the decisions. And this decision lurches us there, but I hope over time that if we do see problems, we're mature enough to change them, which we will. But I think this is a good decision moving forward, and I hope that the community will hear what they're getting from this, which is a massive amount of democracy back into the transport system. Thank you.
Just like every other council. Thank you very much. Councillor Fuli, please.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair, and thank you everyone for the debate. I'm going to vote in favour of the whole thing, but I do feel like I have to acknowledge some of the anxiety and some of the concern and uneasiness and uncertainty that's been raised to me by many of our local boards in South Auckland, including our local boards in Manukau. And some of those concerns echo the concerns we've heard around the table today, some from Councillor Williamson around the arterial routes that look far more local and should therefore sit with local boards. And we did raise some of that in last week's decision that was made. However, I agree also with what many have said around this process. We're at the start of the road, not at the end of it. This is a very, very new process for all of us. And I think even with Package B, although many of us would have liked to see more of that decision-making sitting with elected members, even with Package B, it's sort of like going for the safe bet. We're sort of aiming for the middle at this stage because it is such a new process. It's a bold new world. We don't know what's ahead of us really, if we're honest, but it's a good starting point for now. And I do have enough trust in our staff and in our officers and in the expertise that we have there to believe that they will do the best job possible, and to believe also that we'll get the best advice in our local boards, and any subcommittee that's created as well will get the best advice going forward. I'm comfortable too that this, like I said, it's not the end of the road, it's the start of the road. There will be reviews along the way, and we'll learn along the way as well and get there eventually. I'm not expecting this to be perfect on day one, I will expect some bumps along the way and perhaps some potholes and everything else and every other analogy I can throw in there. But it will be a much smoother ride, I think, if we are all in it together and if we support our staff and give them the support that I think they'll need going forward, and our local boards as well. And so I'm happy to support all of this at this stage, including some of those other issues that other people have raised. Kia ora. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I recall was it the year before last, I was on a bus from Oneitangi going to the ferry, and a couple of rows in front of me, a guy stood up, he saw me, and he had the Herald, and it had AT, or words to this effect, AT to be abolished, and he was brandishing it in triumph. Fist up, good. And in effect, that didn't happen at all, but the government has taken a major step here, and I want to thank the staff for all the work, both Auckland Council and AT, that's gone into this report and preparing this report. However, I am concerned, as I mentioned before, that the optics here are that Parliament has intended us, the governing body, and elected members to be the decision makers. And when I see the infrastructure related decisions, package B compared to package C, I see out of the 12 categories, there are 6 in package C, which indicate that these will be, in bold, governing body decisions. And I see in the recommended package B, not one of them will be a governing body decision. So in appearance, in terms of the optics, but actually in reality, we are signing away not only our mandate, but we are not following the intentions of Parliament. People say, well, it's only new, we're bedding a new system in, so we have to be cautious. Exactly. That is why, in a precautionary approach, and in line with the wishes of Parliament, you would go for package C and include those 6 categories which are decided by governing body decisions. Now, we've heard from around the room assurances that, of course, the governing body and elected members will have a say. They'll have input. There'll be no surprises. There'll even be, according to the Deputy Mayor, an assurance that we'll have oversight. That is not decision making. The decision making will be made by staff. And I think at this stage that it's imprudent to sign all these potential responsibilities that Parliament has given us immediately away to delegate virtually everything in terms of real decision making to the staff. Far more prudent to start off retaining as much power as possible, and then when the system is bedded in, if the councillors feel that everything is running smoothly, then they can delegate if the governing body so wishes. At this stage, I believe that's in effect irresponsible and unwise. The problem is, members, there's a saying, new boss, same as old boss. In this particular case, because it necessarily involves the transfer of AT staff members into Auckland Council, it's not a case of new boss, same as old boss. It's actually, new boss is the old boss, and that's the problem. That's the optics, and that's the reality, unfortunately, as well. So I'll be voting against K and L. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Councillor Turner, please.
That's all been said, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Well done. Councillor Watson, please.
Yeah, I'll be almost as brief, and I just really wanted to acknowledge and thank the members who are putting up questions here. There is, despite the typically snide remark about the past, there is a very famous saying about the past that those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. So I'm very grateful to the people who are bringing up instances of the past, because obviously this reform is meant to address these very instances that people are questioning. And I guess everyone's got their war stories to tell about, you know, various things that have happened with Auckland Transport, and it's to be hoped, and I haven't gone in with the same detail other people have, but it's to be hoped that the new regime is sufficiently tight across the board to avoid any number of the very irritating and frustrating situations that did go on often for years and years, caused all sorts of angst. Now, I think certainly in my experience, history has shown that despite what might be said about elected members are actually often in the best position to make the call, a pragmatic call. And I hear one of the items coming up, the great call to pragmatism. It'd be nice if we, at this stage, do as Councillor Lee has suggested, is to start from a position of relative assurance and then loosen up, not the other way around, because I think we all know in the council when it's the other way around it's a lot harder. So just a thank you, Mr Mayor, to those people who are bringing a little bit of due diligence and questioning to this process, because I think that's certainly going to stand a better chance of a more robust outcome than the usual state of affairs.
Oh, I agree with that entirely. Yeah, start close and ease out as we get more confidence. And it is replacing stuff that wasn't popular. So well done. Councillor Ferry, please.
Kia ora. I do want to acknowledge that I did make an error in my question. I was looking at the wrong version of the minutes, the one that just said whether it was passed or not. And there were indeed 3 councillors who voted against the Auckland Road Classification Framework. I can't tell exactly who was present, but I think that means at least 15 or 16 voted for it. So just to put that straight on the record, and I do apologise to Councillor Gillen for my error there. I wasn't actually going to speak to this item, but I think what's missing in this conversation is acknowledging the balance that we need to adopt here, because there are literally thousands of decisions that are transferring, and we could very easily gum up our works by having too many of the very low level, low consequence decisions coming to us here or going to local boards, to the point where we actually won't be able to get much else done. And Councillor Henderson raised some questions around that, around the funding required to undertake the level of decision making as opposed to staff delegation for package C, which staff responded is unfunded, the level of staff resource that we would require. And I would point out that also our time is a council resource. The time that we spend preparing, the time that we spend in these discussions, the times in workshops. And I genuinely do not think that my community elected me to be spending a lot of my time on the very low level, low consequence decisions that some people seem to be advocating we should be making here. I think I've been elected to make strategic decisions for the future of the city, to have effective oversight, and for the decisions that people really care about to come to us here. And that's not going to be things like a temporary road closure because of an urgent civic or national event. It's not going to be some of the stuff here that people seem to think we should be deciding. So in the interests of a balance between elected member oversight and decision-making and staff delegation, I will be supporting package B for both K and L. I do want to draw attention though, I think N is really important, which is a year one review. We probably aren't going to get all of this right first go. That would be quite miraculous, something this complex. So I think it's great that N is included, that we will review, and there may need to be some delegations that we go, oh, we didn't get that right, we need to bring that back here, and some decisions that we've given ourselves that we go, oh, we didn't get that right either, and actually that needs to go to staff. And I think that's all a healthy part of this democratic process. We still have stuff that's not quite landed right from amalgamation 16 years ago. So to think we're going to get this one 100% in one go, I think is heroic. I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Very much for that. Councillor Baker.
Thank you.
Heroics.
Yeah, look, I think the legislation, not all the stuff that went before it, the legislation talks about transparent transport decision-making, effective governance that allocates some specific transport decisions to local boards. So with the overall and overarching desire and outcome to have a well-functioning transport system, which we need in Auckland. We need a well-functioning transport system. We have a network. We have all of the things that result in, and I remember, it's obviously come down from the number Shane gave, but I remember when I was on the board of AT getting told that every day there are 2,000 things happening in a road corridor somewhere in Auckland, 2,000, all of those things generally need a decision made. And so, we need to be, taking really, significant care in regards to this, and the old be careful what you wish for situation in regards to this, whatever it is, whether it's over 1,000 or it's 2,000, it's a lot. And we don't have the capacity politically across local boards or governing body to consider all those. So we will always, as we do in council, delegate things to staff. Elected rep involvement in, I guess, the decision making to get to that transparent sort of state that was envisaged will be massively increased, as we've heard on a number of occasions today from the staff. We need to get the balanced approach. We need to get balance in how we do that. So there will be local boards involved in the creation of the work programs and what things look like. Governing body the same on our arterial roads so that our network continues to function without having 21 local roading authorities determining different things across the network. So from its speed limit, speed humps, whatever, we need to make sure that we get the balance right in the decision making and that we actually work as a team with our staff who sometimes get looked at as the enemy. Interesting. So they actually do a lot when you consider the work that is done in our road corridor every day and the times that there are massive issues. It's not all that often when you think there are 2,000 things happening every day in the road corridor. How many of those do we actually hear about? We only hear about, yes, there are cock-ups and we hear about them. All good. We can deal with those now. But we just need to make sure that the processes we put in place are what are envisaged and that they are transparent, effective and well-functioning. Because if we don't do that, we fail. And I'll say this again and again, where will we hide when we get it wrong because we no longer have AT to hide behind? So I think this is I think we should actually be, starting with B and setting appropriate direction so that the number of decisions we actually physically have to make at the end of the process, and this is at the end of the process as others have spoken about, is less, but it's up to us giving really clear and good direction. So I'll be supporting it. I think the additions are welcomed, and I think we're in the right space. And as everyone has said, there is the ability to look at this if the sky does fall in, which I don't think it will do, but we can look at it. So I'll be supporting it.
Okay, thank you for that. The only thing wrong with it for me is that it should have happened about a year ago, at least. And I think we will work this out. There will be adjustment and we'll work it out. The people of the far north cover an area which is more than 4.5 hours to drive from one side to the other, and they've worked it out. You know, so we can work it out. And there'll be a bit of give and take, and we'll get the odd thing wrong. But it's got to be a bloody sight better than what we did, and we won't do the same mistakes twice, because we won't be able, don't want to apologise twice. So I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, I'll record Councillor Newman's item and about.
My vote against K and L, please.
Okay, thank you.
And my vote against K also, but support for the rest.
Okay.
And
We've
against
recorded
K and
those
L,
are the ones.
please.
Now, I'll have a 10-minute comfort break, and then I'll have a go at getting as far through it as I can. The next one is the Chief Executive and the CFO's report, which on previous experience has taken anything from half an hour to 4, and I've not been very